When you go into a school, especially elementary students, they're like, I know what a firefighter is, I know what a
Right.
carpenter is, and a police officer.
Right.
I ask kids, like, do you know what an ironworker is? And they're like, do you iron clothes? And they're like, no. I'm like, do you know what a boilermaker is? Do you work in a kitchen? Do you boil potatoes? Like, no.
It's almost time to celebrate manufacturing's finest contributors at the annual Nuts, Bolts, and Thingamajigs Awards Gala. This fun and exciting evening supports the next generation of manufacturers by raising funds for scholarships and educational programs. Help build tomorrow's skilled workforce by attending or participating in the online silent auction. Bid on artwork and other unique items throughout the evening from anywhere. Get all the details at fmamfg.org. And now, back to the episode.
Welcome to the Fabricator Podcast. I'm Dan Davis of the Fabricator. I'm joined by Rob Coleman. Hello, Rob.
Hello, Dan.
Rob is editor of Canadian Fabricating and Welding. That's with an ampersand. In case you're looking to buy a T-shirt. I don't know. We don't have T-shirts. Don't do that. We're here at FabTech Canada. Going north of the border to actually speak with people involved in metal fabricating and manufacturing who happen to be
Canadian.
There you go. That's both Canadian with IAN for our Anglo friends out there, and our French-speaking friends, IEN.
There you go.
This famous story. I got that word wrong on a second grade spelling test because I used to watch Sports Center, and they do Montreal Canadiens scores, and I thought that's how Canadians was spelled.
There you go. Shows when you grow up too.
Yeah.
Grew up too.
They call them formative years for a reason.
There you go.
So we have a kind of a brush with greatness moment right here.
Hardly.
Yeah, I think so. It's not necessarily metal. I'm sure metal is used in fabrication
Absolutely.
of the product. But Rob has a connection to the inventor of what in the States we might call bubble hockey.
We call it table hockey. Yeah.
So with hockey players able to kind of move puck around manually. The ones I've seen usually have the U.S. Olympic team versus the Soviets from 1980.
All ours when I was a kid was basically Toronto playing the Montreal Canadiens. So there you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
So can you explain to us your connection?
So just recently, unfortunately, my wife's uncle passed away. His name is Bill Kobayashi, but he's sort of well known in the family as being important in the development of table hockey as we know it today. So apparently when he got involved in the 50s in developing this product, there was table hockey, but the players didn't move, and they used a marble or something like that, and the surface was raised in the middle, so the marble that you use would slide either way, and the players, you could just move them. But his innovation, I guess, was to have the players move and to use a puck and stuff like that. But yeah, it's pretty cool to say that you knew the guy who worked on that project at a company in Montreal back in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
It's actually, I think, a little more approachable for somebody that's not into table games, in the sense that you can get a feel for it and actually kind of be methodical about it.
Right.
Because I always equate it to like foosball.
Right.
And man, you've always got that idiot in foosball is like he's almost like doing like Pele with it, where he's balancing the ball on his man, and he hits that spin, and like you don't even know what's happened. Table hockey, on the other hand, you're kind of watching it slowly develop, even though you're about to get killed.
Rob, are you any good?
I beat our president in a game. I think I'm the only person who's done that. Ed Udell.
Pierre Trudeau?
Ed Udell. President of FMA.
That's Prime Minister. I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah,
Ed
because we
Udell.
have one in the FMA.
I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah. So we did have a game, and I did win. He made it. I don't know if he remembers that. So I know he's a champion from way back.
We know not to do that in our place of business.
Yeah,
so
I'm not that smart that way. You know.
You know what? He challenged me one time, just randomly, and I had never played before, and I scored a fluke goal right away, and you could just see him like button up and just like,
Yeah.
And then he
Roll
went
up
on to
his
just
shirt
demolish me.
Yeah, he's quite good. But that day, I don't know if he was off his game or if the Canadian in me just came out.
I think it's part of your DNA. Yeah. So once again, a great example. It's not. I'm sure it's not Canada's #1 export, but
Hey, it's a darn good one. Though.
it's like I don't know. There's like kind of a cultural connection with it.
Absolutely, I love
Yeah.
it. I love it.
Yeah. So one of many things made in Canada.
There you go.
And we're speaking with people who are involved in the making and manufacturing of many things. And one of them today is Jamie McMillan. She is currently involved with Made in the Trades.
Made in the trade.
Yes.
Made in the
Yeah.
Trades. It's her
Yeah.
new organization. She's pushing to support and promote young people getting involved in not just manufacturing, but also other trades that provide a path to a independent life,
And
a
helping
successful one.
companies, develop their workplaces better to help keep people and
Yeah.
keep people in the trades, which is another important.
Yeah, she's got really
challenge
good
we have.
perspective, and
Yeah.
she's, a lot of self-awareness about herself that enables her to connect, I think, with people who may not have arrived at that moment of self-discovery about themselves.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
it's a quite an interesting conversation. I think you'll enjoy.
absolutely.
That's it. So enjoy this episode, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Enjoy this episode. Thanks. Bye.
Oh man.
I did not expect the flip side comment.
The countdown to FabTech is on. FabTech is the place to be for the latest and greatest technology, industry knowledge, networking, and more. Meet your favorite influencers, see live equipment demos, and make connections to advance your career. This is North America's largest metal forming, fabricating, welding, and finishing event, and you don't want to miss it. Register for free today at fabtechexpo.com, and I'll see you in Orlando. And now, back to the episode.
Hello, welcome back. Joining us today, thanks for being here, Rob, and Jamie.
Yeah,
Thanks for being here as well. You're somebody that's had a little bit of connection with Canadian fabricating and welding.
Yeah,
Rob, you want to
yeah.
kind of describe how we first
Yeah,
came
we
across
first met
Jamie?
a couple of years ago when I worked for a different magazine, MPMP, a forerunner of Canadian fabricating welding. And we had a top 20 under 40 program, and Jamie was doing so much outreach already at a young age of 15. She's just doing a lot of outreach in the community about getting kids into the trades and encouraging the trades just in general. And so yeah, it's just so nice to have you back here talking to us on a podcast, which didn't exist back then. So.
So since then, you've done a lot of things, been affiliated with a lot of groups, but still maintaining the kind of push to get people to not only be a part of manufacturing, but also be aware of it. Can you kind of trace us through the steps you've gone through over the years to where you are right now?
Oh, absolutely. I came into the construction industry late because I didn't know about it in school, and I wish I had known about these pathways because it truly did save my life. And after being in the construction trades for a few years, I realized that there was a lot of people who probably would have done really well in construction, but they didn't know about it like I did. And I made some pretty convoluted choices. And my journey was rough because I didn't know about it. And because it did so much value in my life, it became very important for me to extend that knowledge to the younger generation and try to encourage them to consider this as a career pathway, because honestly, not everybody's cut out for, for college and university. And I just wanted kids to be aware of it. So it became a passion of mine to go into schools and talk. And thankfully, because of the education system in Ontario being so proactive with the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program and with Skills Ontario, it opened up doors for me to just expand into what I have today.
Yeah. And you started with, I think, when you started Journeyman. Is that fair?
Originally, yes. Originally, I began promoting more to women in trades because there was such a lack of women that had this knowledge, and nobody told women in school that this is what they could do. So it started out with Journeyman because I believe it's a status, not a gender. And then I expanded from there and went into a more of a kids inclusive name. Actually, it was named by high school students, Catholic high school students, and it became Kick-Ass Careers. And Kick-Ass Careers evolved, and some of those students ended up becoming ambassadors for the program when they got into skilled trades. And Now I'm handing off kick-ass careers to some of the ambassadors that are now part of the program. And I'm moving on to Made in the Trade, which is my new madeinthetrade.com, where I'm doing a lot more professional speaking and corporate talks to employers. And I speak a lot about how to recruit the next generation, but I also talk about how they need to work on changing the job site and the job site culture. So I do presentations about workplace detox and how to be more inclusive. And I also talk to women about how to try and avoid swinging the pendulum too far the other way
Right.
and bring it right to the center, because we need to be inclusive with everybody.
Yeah. And how has that gone in terms of those conversations? I know that, you've spent some time, you know firsthand, and talking with people in this industry, it can be a little rough around the edges sometimes.
Oh, yes, it is. And especially because I'm in some of the more difficult trades. I'm part of a trade union. I'm with the ironworkers and the boilermakers. And you get some pretty tough old school mentalities. But educating the old school people is not as easy as going in and doing a reset by going into younger schools and changing their
Right.
beliefs and, experiences about what they can understand about the trades.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you worked in a lot of. I mean, you were out in the oil fields, weren't you, doing work out there? And that's being out in camps like that. I mean, that's got to be quite something.
Oh, for sure. At one point, I was the only female in a dorm of 52 rooms, and there was one female bathroom in the back of all the men's bathrooms, and it was just uncomfortable. So I ended up moving from the camp. But yes, I'm no stranger to being the only girl on job sites or the only girl in a camp. And there's a lot to overcome. There's a lot of challenges and barriers, but if you can stick to it and prove yourself, it's the most rewarding.
Yeah.
But you've gone through some stages. So you did, kick out. Journeyman was more about women in the trades. Have you seen a change that the change that you wanted to see from starting that, and these young women coming up?
The best part of what I'm seeing is that although social media has its setbacks, it also has its positives, because what it's doing is it's actually uniting all the people that are in the trades. So now we're able to share our journeys and stories and have a more public image. Now we don't always have the best representation. So you kind of have to, weasel your way to find the role models versus the influencers. But I have seen a huge change. I see more employers becoming accepting of having an inclusive workforce. I see governments supporting it as well. I'm just trying to make sure that we hold on to that balance of not trying to swing too far one way, because I feel like we excluded the men the men excluded the women from the conversation for a long time. And now we're I don't want to do the same thing to the men. So I'm trying to play that middle ground.
Sure, yeah.
And I see a lot of organizations that are also doing the same.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah, that's great.
Because, really, to get any success out of a business job site, you have to have some sort of cohesion.
Yeah.
You're not going to do well with kind of parties kind of bumping heads and not working well together. Have you seen firsthand success getting some of those people that may have been excluded at one time kind of better able to integrate themselves into these work environments?
Yes, in some cases I do. And it depends. I mean, I come from a union side, so I have a lot of dispatch work. So sometimes it's more difficult. And some of the problems that are happening for specifically women not getting hired as often as men is because of some of the things that the government has implemented for employers to have certain PPE and clothing and tools and equipment that are specific for women, but some of the companies can't afford that. And so in order to help those companies succeed, the unions will send them the men over the women sometimes, which can be an issue, but I get it. Companies sometimes can't afford all that.
Right.
But I do see more or less like the manufacturing plants and the companies that have steady work that aren't on contract work all the time. I definitely see a huge improvement in that, which is bringing more diversity to their workplace.
Right.
It's fantastic.
Right.
That's great to see. And I see you have a coloring book in front of you that you developed, and so you spent a lot of the time in the last few years talking to kids, going into schools. Like we were talking on the phone not long ago, where I think you were between like going to like 5 different schools, and looking at your schedule, going, I don't, it's very busy, very busy. But you created this coloring book as part of that process. Tell us a little bit about what that was all about, and what you hope to get out of that, and it's been successful. So
Yes, it has been. So yeah, the series is called All the Kids on Builder Street, and we have 90 different trades that you can pick and choose from. So you can customize your own coloring books. You can add 18 trades to your coloring book. We're setting it up on the website right now. We just actually completed all of the coloring book and the paperwork for the lawyers and all that. So it's been quite a process. But what we really wanted to do was we wanted to educate kids younger. So these coloring books actually get sent out to schools, and schools actually purchase them in bulk, and they give them to kids all the way from pre-kindergarten, given all the way up to kids in grade 5.
Wow.
And it just gives them a little bit of understanding about all the careers. Because when you go into a school, especially elementary students, they're like, I know what a firefighter is, I know what a
Right.
carpenter is, and a police officer.
Right.
But they don't know about all the trades. They don't understand that when they're driving down the street, they're looking at laborers and road workers and heavy equipment operators and structural workers. And, so I ask kids, like, do you know what an iron worker is? And they're like, do you iron clothes? And it's like, no. I'm like, do you know what a boilermaker is? Do you work in a kitchen? Do you boil potatoes? Like, no. So we wanted to give kids a greater understanding of the skilled trades. So what we did was we took this skilled trades community. We called it All the Kids on Builder Street. And then we have all these intersections of this community, and all the kids know somebody in a skilled trade. So it's their aunt, their uncle, their mom, their dad, their step parent, and we tried to be very diverse. So we have different cultures, different names, different everything.
Yeah.
So we're
That's
very
amazing.
proud of it.
That's amazing. Yeah. It's been out there for a few years now, I want to say. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So, and we've partnered with the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program. So these books have gone all across Ontario.
wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So and the greatest thing about it is it gets to the kid in the school, and then it goes home with the kids. So
Right.
now the parents learn about it too. So
So how many trades did you say were represented?
we have 90 trades in total.
Wow.
So the
On
book
Builder
I have,
Street.
yes.
Yeah. So the website will have an ability to tailor the coloring book to specific trades.
We're working on that.
That's pretty cool.
We're working on that. If anybody has any ideas, please contact me.
I'm a nerd now, and I want to see how many you can name out of the 91. But I will not do that. I'm just wondering, like, what are some of the ironworker you mentioned, boilermaker? Like, what is something maybe that, I don't know, say I'm a parent and I don't know what my kid's interested in. What might be something that would be off the I don't want to say beaten path, but like a trade somebody would maybe not be aware of in general.
Oh,
That might
there-
be covered in that.
There's a lot of them. So like I said, like carpenter and, electrician.
Yeah.
But you don't know things like sheet metal worker or sometimes millwright. Or
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
There's so many different ones. We even have like aerospace. We have technicians. Another thing that we did was we wanted to show that you can even have different abilities. So we have a man who's a welder in one of our books, and he works out of his wheelchair
Okay.
because you can work in a fabrication shop. So we wanted to do that. We talk about an autistic kid in the coloring book. We talk about kids with ADHD. So
Yeah. Oh,
we
that's
made
great.
we tried to expand into every possibility that we could.
Yeah.
just
That's
to
amazing. Yeah.
give that
Awesome.
exposure.
Yeah.
It's a lot of learning for the kids just to hear those terms, and then take them home to the parents, and maybe their parents teach them more about, or as you say, the parents learn a lot about it too. Because millwright, I didn't know what a millwright was until I started working on these magazines. So
There's always time to learn.
exactly.
So is this this is a personal thing for you as well, I'd imagine, right?
It is. There's 3 of us that are working on it, and what we like about it is we started doing this years ago before anybody else had coloring books out, except for one organization in the U.S. that had done some in the 70s. So we contacted them because we didn't want to copycat them. So we contacted them. They were okay with it, but we were just. I can't remember what your question was now.
No, I was just wondering. It seems like a very personal project for
yes,
you. Yeah.
yes. So we were very passionate. ADHD. We were so passionate about it that the 2 people that worked on this with me are also from the trades. So one is a millwright and stationary operating engineer, and the other one, she's just a stationary operating engineer. Well, not just. She's so much more.
Yeah.
But the 3 of us got together, and as 3 authentic skilled trades professionals, we wanted to create something. So Finn is an artist as well. So he did all the art, and then we came up with a storyline together, and
That's great.
it is very personal. It's a legacy that we want to leave behind.
Right. Yeah. So you described earlier, I think the phraseology was like, your career path saved you. I mean, I don't know if that was the word you used, but you found a home working in the trades. Can you kind of touch upon why it's been important for you as you've gotten older and coming out of school and maybe didn't find your way right away?
Yeah, absolutely. So because I have ADHD and learning differences, it was hard for me in school. And I never really excelled at all when it came to academics. And later on found out that that's a lot to do with my ADHD and that disability that I have for paper and reading and sitting still. But nobody told me in high school that skilled trades were an option. So I ended up dropping out of high school, and I didn't discover the pathway until way later on in life when somebody else told me about it. And it literally saved my life. It's opened up so many doors to opportunities. And the truth is that I got paid to learn. I was in a place in my life where I was probably close to being homeless. I had no ambition. I had no interest in going to college or university. There was nothing that inspired me to go to school. And I honestly believed that I would never be successful in my life. And because of it, I went to some pretty dark places in my mind. And when skilled trades came up as an opportunity to get paid, to learn, to do hands-on careers and get really good money to do it, plus pension and benefits and vacation pay, which you don't really get anymore from employers, it was just like a natural route to take. And that's why I say it saved my life.
Yeah, I think you see that quite a bit. Yeah, in terms of people finding a home where maybe they didn't even believe one existed.
Yeah.
That's a good story.
Great
Thank you.
story. Yeah. So you're changing tack a little bit. I mean, are you still doing outreach to kids along with your corporate stuff, or is that sort of going to go to the side?
I still am going to always save place for that.
Okay.
So I always have a spot that I'm going to keep open to go into schools, because that's where I really thrive. I love hanging out with students. I will spend a whole day at a school. I'll get booked to go for a keynote for one session or two sessions. I'll spend the whole day. I'll go to the shops. I'll grab a welding shield, or, I love that. And to me, I am a professional speaker now, and I do a lot of corporate speaking engagements, but even with my corporate, I treat that the same way I treat going to schools with kids. I want to be there and mingle with my crowd.
Yeah.
I want to understand them. And with students, I don't just want to walk in and do a presentation and be that person on the stage that comes in the back door and out the back door.
Yeah.
I want to actually hang out with them and talk to them and get to know them. And that's how I've built kick-ass careers. And that's why those students are now some of my ambassadors.
Right.
So I believe in that personal connection. I don't just believe in running and doing a talk and running out the door.
Right.
How does your message change when you're speaking to like a corporate gathering, maybe of business leaders, instead of like younger people maybe looking at a future perhaps in business or something related to that?
So this is funny because people always say somebody will come with me to say 3 presentations a day, and the morning will be elementary students, the afternoon will be high school students, and then maybe the evening will be parents and industry leaders, right? They're always like, how do you use the exact same slides to do 3 different presentations? So I think that I've built my presentations getting feedback from kids. So after I would do my presentations, I would get the kids to critique me until my presentations became exactly what they wanted. And I basically take that same presentation and just make it a little more advanced for high school students. And then when I speak to employers and parents, instead of just speaking to the benefits of taking those career classes, I encourage the parents, this is the benefits of your kids taking these career classes.
Right.
And then the employers I speak to about why it's important for them to bring actual representation from the trades into the schools, and why it's important for them to take those students on for co-ops and apprenticeships, and how to change their toxic work environments if they have one.
Right.
The one of the things our publications, Canadian Fabricating and Welding, and the Fabricator are affiliated with the Fabricators and Manufacturers Association, and they have an association foundation where they try to reach out and promote metal fabricating industry. One of the challenges is reaching out to the younger people, and sometimes people forget that doesn't just mean high school. That means the younger you can get them, the better, just to start informing them. Do you see that? Do you believe that wholeheartedly? I think you do. I mean, not to me, like high school students doing coloring books, but present company excluded. But you obviously this must be the way you kind of approach it.
Yes, I think that early childhood education is when you need to get them, and there's a psychology behind it. So The reason I like to go as young as pre-kindergarten is because when you think about
Wow.
the psychology, there's a whole psychology, and it's interesting. So now I'm going to sound like a psychiatrist, and I'm not a psychiatrist, so don't. I just do a lot of studying and ruminating on different subjects. But between the ages of 5 and 7 is when your brain develops its emotional maturity. So certain emotions like empathy and accountability and a lot of those things are developed in early childhood. So if you don't have good mirrors or reflections or information coming in or educators, and you're not getting those specific emotional needs met, you may never develop those emotional needs yourself. And so by going in and educating kids younger about how to treat people, how to recognize that we're all different and it's okay to be different, and how careers don't have genders, I think educating them at an early age is making them understand that as they get older, even the maybe influence they have from outside, influences that are saying, girls shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't do this, or you should do this and that, and college and university is the only way. I think embedding it into them in early childhood is opening up their minds and changing their mindset and their emotional maturity later on in life.
Yeah.
It's a long process, but I think in order to do a reset of how people think now, we have to go younger and change that early mentality.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah. It's not an overnight fix, but it's I think you see with the current generation. I think there's certain approaches to life that are quite different from what their parents maybe did, and I think it's kind of tied in with what you described.
Yep.
They're a lot more comfortable in a lot of situations, and maybe their parents aren't.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it makes sense.
Yep.
You see that kind of with the people you're dealing with now,
With
as the younger people. Like you mentioned, your portion of your career, kick-ass careers. Those people now coming to the point where you're able to kind of hand over the program. They're now becoming leaders in the industry. So do you feel like that change is starting to happen before your eyes?
Absolutely. And we really vet our people in the kick-ass careers because we want to represent kids we want kids to see role models. We want them to see what they can be, and we want them to see people that behave appropriately in the workplace, that wear their proper PPE, that aren't, filming themselves all day and making TikTok videos. We don't discourage people from doing it, but we want them to show their authentic side. But we also want them to show the benefits that skilled trades have on their life, not just through work, but how does it impact their life? You see somebody like Dee, for example, 24 years old, significant money in her bank account, saving for a house. She's doing things correctly. So is Mira. The girls that are part of the crew, Jessica, Kendra, all of them, they're showing young women specifically, and we're not just about promoting young women,
Right.
just when you look at them, they're great role models for future women that want to get in the industry because they represent the industry authentically and respectably. And you don't always get that.
Right.
So that's what's really, really important for us.
So that's kind of been the change then, that maybe people who are underrepresented were maybe a part of it, but they were kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Off to the side, maybe not fully visible to those that would maybe consider a career in those particular fields.
Well, yes. And I remember when I first started promoting specifically women in trades, the only pictures you've seen of women in trades were like girls in Daisy Duke shorts with like a welding shield on. And it's like, no, you don't weld in a bikini top in Daisy Dukes. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. But
It's a
that
good
was all
safety
they
point.
had.
Important to bring that up.
So I started saying, show women that actually look like they work in the industry. Don't put them in brand new Carhartts and a tank top to show off. Show them how they actually look in the industry. But then I always tell the girls, I love Dee. She just posted a picture recently where she posted on her professional account for Kick-Ass. So I suggest that they have a personal account where they, share their other stuff that they wouldn't post professionally.
Right.
But she posted this beautiful picture. When she's at work, she looks like a little boy. She's got her hair up under her hard hat and she works hard and her face is dirty. But then outside of work, she's got this beautiful dress on and she looks so pretty, and you can be both.
Yeah.
And there's nothing
sure.
wrong with that, right? A
Yeah.
man, you could dress up in a beautiful suit and not even be recognized at an event when you work with your guys on the job site that don't recognize you dressed up. It's the same thing for women.
Yeah.
So
I felt like when we first met, there was there were 3 or 4 women that I met through you who are in the industry, and you're all good friends, and you all work together really effectively and help each other out. So yeah, are you seeing more? You're seeing a larger group of women coming up now, and I mean, social media kind of helps with this, being able to post pictures, being able to show that there are lots of us. So you're seeing more people, and you're seeing people coming out of presentations you've done, and coming in to help you out. That's fantastic.
Yep. And the greatest thing too is when I go to a presentation, I can present and then I can direct the kids to follow different people. So Courtney Chard, for example, amazing welder. Like she is like, I have her on a little pedestal. Like, and she was Canada's first pipeline welder, and then female pipeline welder, not first. And it was in her family. And now she works for UA. But she also has her own shop at home, and she's been teaching her daughter Hayden to weld since Hayden's 5 years old. And now they like weld in the shop together. They make beautiful metal art, and she has this great page. So I tell kids, like, look, you can do this. You can become a welder. You can have your own fabrication shop. You can follow role models like this and kind of do the same sort of path. And
She was involved in studies when she was pregnant,
Yes.
even as a welder, to see how that went. People just don't think about that sort of thing. Yeah, so yeah, it's a remarkable woman. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and she's got like a wonderful story of how she's gone through challenges and struggles in her life too, and she's raised to every occasion and challenge, and she is so highly respected. Ask anyone in the UA about her, and they love her.
Well, and you introduced me to Nicole Leclerc, who started her own bursary program.
Oh, wow.
That's awarded through the CWB, and just a group of people who all in a different way have helped encourage women in the trades and young people in the trades as well. Because Nicole's bursary is not just for women; it's for anybody.
But I think it
who's
really
coming in.
helps to have that kind of support network
Yep.
Yeah.
that people can lean on, because there's going to be times if they're entering a realm that is not used to their presence.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little tough some days, I'd imagine.
Oh, for sure.
And just being able to lean on some people who've been there.
Yep.
It's a good thing.
Yep. And there's always going to be challenges and barriers for everybody. There's
Yeah,
no
sure.
differences between the challenge and barriers that men and women face, or however you like to identify. We all have the same challenges and barriers. We just approach them differently. But
Yeah.
Nicole is another example of so she's an instructor now with Mohawk College, and she does like welding instructor. And what a great person for welding instructor. I mean, the woman is brilliant, and she's so committed and motivated in this pathway, but it's also awesome to have such an amazing teacher. So
Yeah.
the young men and women that are going into her class, well, the young men are seeing that this brilliant woman can weld circles around them and teach them. And then the young women are seeing, wow, I can be this woman someday.
Yeah.
So what a
Yeah.
great role model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just being in the industry, having covered it for now more than 20 years, the evolution of walking into a shop and not seeing the pinup girls up. And it's just, it's a gradual thing. And
Yeah.
what do you say to those? Because you've done it very diplomatically, saying you want to include men, you want to bring it back to the middle, and that is an issue because people, once again, you want that sense of teamwork. You don't want to isolate people, and people can feel pretty frustrated. What would you suggest for companies that are trying to maybe bring in new blood into their work environments, but at the same time want to make sure they're old school, they're foundation, if you will, the people that have been there and helped build it up, they don't feel like they're being left behind, forgotten about.
It's hard because it's like you always have to follow this trend, right?
Right.
So it's like social media, always trying to keep up with the algorithms. I let that go a long time ago. I
Yeah.
don't even bother anymore. It's so much work to constantly try to stay ahead.
Yeah.
So I just try to stay relevant by focusing on the places that most people haven't been focusing on for a long time. And
Right.
when I was starting to go into the schools, as far as I knew, the only people that were going into the schools was Skills Ontario.
Right.
And they didn't have much for authenticity. So they would send liaisons and stuff into the schools, but none of them really had come from the trades. And the truth is, kids can see through that BS.
Yeah.
Kids will call you out on everything. I mean, they still call me out on stuff, and I've been doing this for years, and I
Yeah.
have a good rapport with kids. So,
Right.
yeah, I can't remember how.
No,
to
but I
completely
think
answer
you
that.
maybe touched upon it without like fully addressing it. Authenticity goes a long way.
It sure does.
So the people coming in are able to deliver on what they are supposed to deliver. You get a modicum of respect.
Yep.
And maybe that helps build the bridge between new school and old school.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
always think it's important. Like anytime I go on the road and I travel, I will also try to reach out I'll go on social media and say, hey, I'm going to be in Thunder Bay. Is there any skilled trades professionals that would like to join me and come to a school? And I'll bring a couple people with me, because I don't want the kids just to hear my message. I like to include male and female representation in my presentations as well, because I want them to see that if I can bring other people in to share a bit of their story, so I'll give them a couple minutes out of my keynote to introduce themselves, and give a little bit of a conversation about how we can all work together. And it's funny because I have this one kid, Dakota, who comes out with me. I shouldn't call him a kid. He's in his 30s, but I call him my little brother. And I bring him to school sometimes, and he's a rod buster, and he's a hard worker, and he also does professional fighting, or used to do professional fighting. So the guy he's a knockout puncher. And I'll bring him into schools with me, and we'll talk to little kids, and he'll get up and he'll talk about how he's in one of the most difficult trades. But he's like, I know women who are stronger than me. I box in a ring, and I've been punched out by girls. And so he brings a different
Right.
kind of,
Yeah.
so
That's
what a
hilarious.
fun way to talk to elementary kids and
Yeah.
show them that, you have a male and a female representation both talking to you, and we have fun and we have this
Right.
great camaraderie. And then, of course, at the end of the presentations, they all want to wrestle with him, and they do.
It's amazing.
There's nothing that questions gender norms much like a female MMA fighter.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. It's amazing. They're incredible.
That's something else. So as you go out and you're able to bring these other parties with you in your presentations, are you able to kind of connect maybe students with a local organization like a company? Because I think sometimes, the people they choose, these companies, the people they choose to go out may not be necessarily the most energetic or the most ready for prime time representative of manufacturing. So I think having a diplomat, if you will, to kind of bridge that gap would be kind of interesting.
I do try my best. And what I do is there's many, many different groups that I'll try to, siphon people over to and send them here and there. Mostly in the schools, I push Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program in Ontario, or any of the other schools that I go to, I push the trades. And I try to connect them as much as possible. That I can only go so far, and then they have to take over the rest.
Right.
But you're right. One of the things that's interesting is I do go to a lot of events. But one of the things I focus on when I do my school talks and events is I try to get off the beaten path. So the reason I don't always want to just be a speaker at something like Skills Ontario specifically, I love speaking there. That's not what I'm not saying I don't want to. But when I go out on the road and I do my tours, I tell the students, the teachers, send me to rural communities where students that would otherwise not be looked at, I can speak to them. Because honestly, you go to a skills competition and you're going to get the cream of the crop students. And then the kids that get to come to those skills competitions are probably some of the better students in school.
Right.
They're not the ones that were definitely like me.
Right.
I was that kid who struggled and probably failed and spent way too much time in detention. And they overlooked me, yet I was the one that should have been there because that's what I needed. And that's why I misbehaved, was
Right.
because I didn't know about these opportunities and I didn't have the grades to be sent to these things. So I want to go to rural communities where I can speak to a whole school of kids that would not be sent to these events.
What do you think, what connects with them? What kind of gets their attention? What do you say? Would you show that maybe like where there's a kind of like a moment you're like, yep, right there, I know that.
I've gotten really good at reading my crowd over the years because I've also learned to talk to kids. Some people can't speak to kids. I can keep kids on a floor for an hour in a gym, grade 3s. But I think that it's because I speak vulnerably. I am not a speaker who goes in, I'm relatable. Some speakers, and I'm never going to knock down good speakers. There's really, really good speakers, but some kids hear celebrity speakers. They're like, I could never be that. It's a high goal that not everybody can achieve. I go in and I talk about how I got picked on and bullied and I was in special education. And yet even though I struggled in school and I dropped out, I encourage kids, don't be like me. Don't drop out, because I had to go back to school when my brain turned into a rock and try to make it spongy again. And it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
So by bringing that message to kids, I'm speaking vulnerably, but I'm also talking about what's important in life. What's important? Is your friends important to you, or is your future important to you? Do you want to make money in your future, or do you want to focus on the things I did and try to focus on, validation from friends and outside sources instead of actually focusing on my life? And because I make it relatable like that, I think that kids really connect. But I get a lot of kids that come up to me with ADHD and autism because of those spectrums that I'm on. And it's interesting because most of the time when these kids with autism and ADHD come up to me, they're lost and they don't understand what's going on with them. And something that a lot of people don't know, and I don't know if you guys know this, people that have ADHD are usually on a spectrum of what's called rejection sensitivity dysphoria. So we have this built into our brains. So people with ADHD, you will notice, often can't control the emotion of rejection like other people. So they will oftentimes put their guard up, isolate themselves, go home, ruminate, think they've done things wrong, and then they get fixated on that. So we don't know how to take constructive criticism the way other people would.
Right.
And so I bring that to the conversation, and I can see it in the crowd every time. Light bulbs go off. I've seen grown men at conferences tear up and come up to me and hug me and literally cry after and say, you just told my life story. And I didn't know all these years that I felt rejected because of my diagnosis.
Right.
Right. Wow.
And that's where it connects most. Like, that connects more than the skilled trades message.
No
Wow.
kidding. Wow.
Incredible.
So I guess the authenticity once again kind of paves the way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Amazing.
Well, right now, I heard a statistic the other day that ADHD used to be 1 in a couple thousand. Now it's 1 in 38.
Wow. Remarkable.
So
I'm
it's
not
on the
surprised.
rise.
Not surprised to hear it. You know, people getting that diagnosis and finding a way to handle it, and that's
We're
the key.
breeding it.
Yeah.
Like social media, kids don't even have if they don't have their, like, you look at a TikTok story, if it doesn't capture their interest in the first couple of seconds, they skip it.
Right.
So they're used to quick information
Right.
at their anytime they want to access it.
Right.
They don't want to sit in a school and listen
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. What captures your attention now outside of the speaking, outside of the advocacy for the trades?
I'm an adventurous person. I love hiking. I love traveling to the mountains. I want to live in a van because I just want to travel and I could with my cats. I bring them hiking with me. But the other
Like
things,
loose?
No, they have leashes and
Okay,
backpacks.
all
I
right.
have a
I thought you had
backpack.
one of those cats that maybe just follow you or something.
I
like
wish you
that.
would, but we're in the
Yeah.
city, so I haven't trained.
No, that's probably smart. Yeah.
So I have Spud Wrench and Pipe Wrench. Those are my cats.
That's awesome.
Funny. Piper was named
Full
by
name?
Nicole. Yeah.
Oh, short. So you short. Okay. all
Spuddy
right.
and Piper. So I had
Okay.
Piper for Pipe Wrench, and then Nicole
Gotcha.
actually named Piper as Pipe Wrench. So
Do you still weld at all?
I do on occasion when I get to go into the schools. So if I get to go into schools and do talks, I'll ask if they have a welding department, and I'll just head over there and hang out
Nice.
sometimes through shop classes.
Oh,
and
cool.
sometimes on my days off, I'll call Marco because he's like one of my favorite tech teachers, and he's in Hamilton. I'll say, hey, Marco, you got something going on today? Can I come up to the shop and hang out with some students?
That's awesome.
Would you ever get to the point where you like kind of spec out your own van to take out and do that traveling? That is something I find very interesting.
That's what I want to do. I'm not a business person, so I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
So-
But you could kind of work and kind of think about what you need, right?
Yep. Yeah, I already have that whole business plan together in my head. I just don't know how to execute it.
Yeah.
I actually talked about it with Lincoln Electric, I think a year ago.
That's one of those things like social media is good for, because there's no way I should be allowed out in the wilderness. Otherwise, it'd be like armed forces out trying to find me after 2 days. But other people doing it, more power to them.
Dan would be like Michael Scott in that episode of The Office, Survivor Man.
I know Mike Rowe used to give, like, I think I seen an episode once where he went to see this girl in Portland and she got a truck and this whole kit to travel around with. I was like,
Come on.
hey,
how
Mike
do I
Rowe,
do that?
call me.
Exactly. Yeah. how
Call
do I
me,
make
set me
that
up with a
happen?
welding kit.
I'm
Exactly.
watching the extreme version of it too, where they have this kind of setup you're describing, and they just start driving north, like way north, like Alaska, and it's like changing seasons, and the truck broke down. I had to get out at midnight last night. And there's like Aurora Borealis in the background. He's trying to fix. Like, what the hell?
That is
Yeah.
super cool.
Too much stress.
I would love to. I would love to. If I talked about it, if I had a kit where I can just travel around, I would go to all the rural communities because they don't all have welding shops.
Yeah.
So if I could pull
Yeah.
into the back of a school and open up the back of the truck and have my own little welding kit on the go,
Well,
I could do that.
Man, there's a lot of places to visit in Canada.
Well, I know,
Oh, yeah.
I know CWB is trying to do that with their welding truck, taking it to some remote communities, but they can't get to everywhere, right?
Truck
so
is too
the
big
more
for some of those communities.
exactly. So trying to get out there and see people is amazing. Yeah.
Well, all you need for the school is like, you see those van lifers now. They have like the garage van that they pull out the back.
Yeah.
It's underneath the bed. You just need a little welding kit. Like honestly, a little backpack suitcase welder with a little.
So you do
setup.
have it planned out.
I do. I've planned it all out in my head. I just don't put it on paper because.
Well, where can people find you in case they want to get involved with this? I think we can make this happen.
Yeah,
there you
this
go.
is gonna happen.
That would be awesome.
So they got like some kind of fabricator, some welding company want to sponsor this? Where
That
they
would
find
be
you?
awesome. Oh, I'm at madeinthetrade.com.
There you go. Man,
Trade.com.
it's perfect
Cool.
timing because this is kind of new, right?
Yep.
Take it on the
Great.
road with a van. Let's do this.
Yeah, I would just live in a van and travel everywhere. I would do this full time. So
You consider your cats
I would bring my cat.
supporters of the trades.
yes,
Okay.
yes. Spuddy's my little mascot,
All right.
and Piper, she kind of hides a little, but
I gotta say that one of the impacts I've seen from the work that you've done and your cohort is that, I went into a shop recently and we were walking through and I saw a number of women working there, and that was not the first thing that the people running the shop mentioned.
Right?
It was just like they were just part of the team, and there were several of them, and it was like it was great to see, and even I didn't sort of twig that I didn't, that I wasn't surprised by it at first. So that's a good sign, when you see shops like that. I know that's not every shop, but they're out there now, and it shows that the work that you've done, and Nicole and Courtney and other people we haven't even mentioned today have done over the last however many years we've known each other. Yeah, it's been a while.
Not as much time as to construct a pyramid. but-
Exactly. I'm feeling as old as Dan right now.
they try to say it was. They try to say it was done in 10 years. I don't believe that.
I believe
10
that.
year.
No, I don't believe
I've
that
heard
either.
10 years and I've heard 20 years, but there's over 2 million blocks in there.
They,
so they'd
man,
had to do a lot of blocks a day.
Yeah,
to
they've had to
Absolutely.
reconstruct the Notre Dame Cathedral. I mean, they got everything known to man. How long is it taking them
It's
to finish
taken
that
a very
work?
long time. Yeah, absolutely. But thank you so much for what you do. I really appreciate it, and I'm so glad to see the results out there.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty exciting.
It
Yeah.
is. It's funny that you mentioned Nicole, and we were sitting at a restaurant a few years back watching a band, and these guys came over to talk to us. We were at a little table like this, and they're standing there and they're talking to us, and they're like, "So what do you girls do?" And as soon as we both mentioned that we were in the welding trades, like metal industry, it was like they were blown away. And I remember Nicole looking at me and going, "I can't wait for the day where I just say I'm in the welding industry and people are like not affected by it."
Exactly.
I encourage engineering to kids because you get a lot of we have a lot of immigration here, and a lot of the immigration is they're pushing them to be doctors, lawyers, engineers. And what I'm telling the students is, if you want to be an engineer, you have to take shop class.
Yeah.
Because I get so actually it's a love-hate relationship with engineers on the job site. The ones that actually have job site experience versus the
Yeah.
ones that are
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
just rely on the book smarts, or the
Yeah.
ones that don't leave the office to go look at the work in the field, and then you get a blueprint that doesn't make any sense because the column they want you to build off was removed
Yeah.
40 years ago.
Yeah, no, it really is the equivalent of the ones that grew up on farms, gearheads, had some kind of hands-on activity, as opposed to the ones that were just good in math
Yeah.
and just kind of follow that engineering path. Somewhere along the lines, practical world experience does make a difference.
Oh, for sure. And one of the things I do like about, and I don't care whether people are union or non-union, I'm not biased. I promote all opportunities, regardless of what people think. One of the great things I do say about the unions that's really beneficial is that I've been in the trades for over 20 years now. If I decide I want to go back to school to become an engineer, a structural engineer, civil engineer, we have a trade improvement fund through a lot of unions where
wow.
you go to school and they'll actually pay you back depending on, you got to pass the course and stuff, but there's certain requirements, but they'll literally pay you back. Or a lot of times if you're part of a union, we get a lot of free training, or employers. If employers want to invest in you, they send you for all the training.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I tell kids,
Yeah.
like, you can go from co-op student, apprentice, you become a journeyman, a foreman, a general foreman, superintendent, project manager, own your own company. Use the company for every bit of training you can get. And I'm seeing people do that.
Yeah.
They're taking advantage of it.
Yeah, they definitely understand that they don't want to necessarily build up the heap of debt that maybe they've seen parents or maybe even older siblings do. Yeah, I think that message has gotten through to a lot of people.
Yeah, great message.
Well, any questions, Gareth?
Yeah, you were saying that it took a while for you to understand that skilled trades was a career path you wanted to take. How long did it take you to feel comfortable with being a public speaker about it and so front-facing?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I remember the first time I got in the stage, my legs were shaking so bad, like I probably looked like Elvis Presley up there.
Hey, no.
I thought I was going to fall off the stage. And it took a while because I would look at other speakers and think, well, I'm never going to be a good speaker like that. And because I have that rejection sensitivity,
Right.
I take things way more personally than I need to as well. And so I just never had the confidence in myself in the beginning until I started asking kids to critique me. And once the kids started critiquing me, that was around 2014, and I had been speaking off and on for a couple of years by that point. Once the kids started critiquing me, I'm telling you, it changed everything. And then I met a man by the name of Mark Breslin. Are you guys familiar with Mark Breslin?
I know the name, yeah.
So he's a professional speaker in the skilled trades as well.
Right.
And by chance, I was at the same conference with him, and Doug Parton, who is now my business manager through the Ironworkers, because I'm out of the Ironworkers Vancouver Hall, Local 97, he introduced me to Mark. Mark gave me 15 minutes of his time. And the 15 minutes that he gave me made such a profound impact in the way I spoke and how I felt on stage. I've never felt that way again.
Wow.
That's amazing.
So it was just a few things, a few pointers. Like, for example, he said, you don't need to use the podium because the podium made me nervous because I need to walk around. He said, you
Gotcha.
don't need to use the podium.
Right.
He said, you don't need to pretend you know everything. If you don't know anything, tell them you don't know, and don't try to fake it till you make it. Just little simple things like that. He says, if you want an easel, you ask for an easel. If you want a cordless mic, you're the speaker. You ask for what you want. And I wasn't brave enough to do that prior.
Right.
So now you won't know when I'm nervous, because if I do get nervous, I pace. But I pace anyways.
Right. Right.
So what did the kids tell you?
Oh my goodness. Kids are brutal.
Yeah. My wife's a teacher.
The younger
She'll
they
say
are,
yes.
they have no filter, right? So things like, for example, I worked at McDonald's. That was my first career when I was still in high school, my first job, not career. And I said in a presentation one time that I had a crappy job at McDonald's. And one of the kids was so insulted that they called somebody that had hired me as a speaker. Well, their parents had called and said, my kid was insulted by this because I'm their mother and I have a full-time job at McDonald's.
Right.
And I felt so bad because McDonald's wasn't a crappy job. It was a fun job, but I didn't make the money I
Right,
needed to
right.
survive. So that's why I referred to it as a crappy job.
Yeah.
So just little tweaks like that.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
kids telling me, yeah, well, you shouldn't dress like that when you're talking to us because, like, we don't really want to see you in a dress. We want to see you dressed like us. So I had my, at the time, 14-year-old niece bring me out shopping, and she dressed me like a teenager, but the kids connected better because I
Right.
was dressed like them. And I'll sit on the floor with them in the gym. I don't act like an adult with kids.
Right.
So that's improved my speaking.
That's amazing.
So
I saw a meme the other day, and it was something about like saying something to a teenager, and the comment that my friend made was, I don't talk to teenagers; they terrify me.
oh yeah.
Younger kids would terrify me too. It's crazy. Who gave you your first opportunity to speak? Like, how did that come up?
Skills. So
Okay,
Skills
Skills
Ontario.
Skills
And
Ontario.
then one day a panelist didn't show up, and I used to just go and sit at a table as a mentor. And one day a panelist didn't show up, and I got called up to the stage, and I nearly pooped my pants. And from there, teachers were like, hey, that was a really great story. Can you come to my school and speak? Can you come to my school and speak?
Okay.
And then I ended up speaking. I had to do a 10-minute talk for International Women's Day for the military in Ottawa.
Oh wow.
And that was very intimidating because I was like the least educated person on the panel, but they were more interested in what I had to say because it was outside of the military.
Yeah.
Right.
And all the other speakers were military.
Right.
Huh.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It's been quite the journey.
I was about to say,
And I
yeah.
still have room for improvement.
Yeah, I
Don't
think
we all?
everyone does.
Yeah.
I
up,
just
Garrett?
recently released a new speaking engagement. I've only done it a few times so far, and it's still, I get the employers to critique it. So anybody I know in the audience, I'm like, you have to call me and give me all the feedback on it. But the new one I have is called the Workplace Detox. And it's a pretty deep dive with a call to action on employers to root out those toxic people and figure out who they are. Because sometimes the toxic people are the most productive people in the workplace.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're the
Yeah.
ones that are throwing the other people under the bus, and that's why we don't have retention.
Yeah,
Right,
they'll
right.
sabotage a lot. But for somebody that had, struggled with, the rejection, I don't know what the phraseology was.
Rejection sensitivity dysphoria.
You're very forward in trying to get constructive criticism now. That's kind of
amazing to me.
interesting.
I know that I need it, and I'll be honest with you. It wasn't until recently that I even discovered that I had RSD. I didn't know what it was, but I joined an ADHD group, and they were talking about it, and I'm like, oh my God, like it connected all the dots to everything I feel. But the constructive criticism does hurt.
Oh yeah.
But I
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
to not take it personally. But there's been times when, I don't know if you guys know who Jen Green is. So she's the director of competitions for Skills Ontario. She's a millwright by trade. She's one of the most outstanding humans I know. I love her. And I used to call her every once in a while and be like, I don't know how to take this. And I'd like that my rejection sensitivity is so bad that I think everyone doesn't like me. And
Right.
I have a hard time approaching people.
Right.
And I'll call her and she talks me through it every time, and she makes me feel like $1 million. So I think having that support is really good too. It's better than the medication.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of lessons to kind of be learned here.
Yeah.
In a
Yeah.
way, I think you make people question a lot of things.
Yep.
Not even just focused on the trades, but working with others, accommodating an environment that allows people with different learning styles and different genders to kind of work together. It's a very timely and important message.
Well, it is. And I became very passionate about studying psychology a few years ago too. Not going to school for it. I just started to read up on it. I was working at a homeless shelter during COVID. And I just wanted to do something for the community. I was still doing presentations at home, but I had a chance to help out in the community. And I'm not a person who could sit in my house. So I needed to get out. I was a very social person. And I wanted to understand all the different personality styles and disorders that were in the community, in the homeless community. And I cannot believe how much it's changed my life, recognizing any sort of toxic traits I might have had.
Right.
Because I recognize that, oh my God, I have a very sarcastic humor, but that comes off a lot as passive aggressive
Right.
or microaggressions.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm not perfect, but I'm really trying to work on myself. And in working on myself, it's helping me to change my message, to portray that same message to others and try to lead by example.
Yeah.
Gareth, anything else?
I just have one more.
Oh, we can't even hear you anyway, but we'll just
yeah,
pretend
right.
to
I'll
hear
just...
you.
Yeah, the machines have really picked up here today. I noticed multi-language on the coloring book. Ojibwe was included. What was the decision to include that?
It was something that we spoke about doing right from the very beginning. We wanted to have something that was absolutely unique, which it is. There's a lot of coloring books and other books out there now, but ours is very unique. It's customizable. It has 90 trades. And we offered that opportunity to have the different languages because we wanted this to be an inclusive effort. So books that are just in one language or two languages, they're not reaching the entire population. So a few years ago, it was an absolute honor that one of the OYAP coordinators reached out to me with the entire Ojibwe translation. So we're working on getting more and more translations because we want to have it so that when you go to the website, you pick your cover, you pick the 18 trades you want, and then you pick, you put your own branding on it, but you can also pick your language, and you can pick up to 3 languages.
Oh, wow.
So we're trying to target as many people as we can and make it as diverse as possible because we're about being inclusive.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been quite
thank
the
you so
chat.
much.
This has been a super honor. Thank you for having me.
No, it was fun.
Great to catch up.
Yeah, I know. It's been way too long.
It has.
Yeah.
If you have want to reach out, and they can find you at
Madeinthetrade.com.
Yeah, I know. I gotta get better at that.
So
Or where else?
You can also go to kickasscareers.ca, or you can reach out. I'm on social media. I have Made in the Trades on Instagram. We have Kickass Careers on Instagram. Facebook, which I hardly ever use. TikTok, oh my God, what a headache. And LinkedIn, of course, always LinkedIn under Jamie McMillan.
Okay. Awesome.
Rob, where can they find you, Mr. Social
Right
Media?
Right here.
He
next
never leaves
12
FabTech
hours.
Canada.
I'm
Yeah.
tired. Thanks for the help today. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Gareth. Thank you, Griffin. If you have any comments, complaints, suggestions.
Yeah, we like construction.
I like blessings again. Let's go with blessings. If you want to send some
Yeah,
blessings
blessings.
our way, send it to podcast at the fab. I knew I was going to mess up
Oh,
eventually.
man.
Podcast at fmamfg.org. And maybe we can send you a t-shirt. All right, I think that's it. Goodbye.
The Fabricator Podcast is a production of Fabricators and Manufacturers Association, located in Elgin, Illinois. The show is hosted by Dan Davis and the staff of FMA Communications. The podcast is produced by Gareth Slager and recorded and edited by Griffin Hammond and Dana Weicker. Sales support provided by Andy Flando. Additional production support by Elizabeth Gavin, Mike Owens, Billy Kulpa, Pat Simon, Brandon Geyer, and me, Sarah Spring. Email us at podcast@fmamfg.org. Thank you for listening.